Hello and welcome to Today's Coffee with Craig. I am Craig, your host. We are the Firearms Policy Coalition, and we're here to talk about the Second Amendment, firearms, guns, all as they relate to politics, culture, media, you name it. So please do us a favor. Please like and share this video as well as our page, whether it's our YouTube channel or our Facebook page, with all those with whom you communicate with so that they can join us in the conversation. So today we're going to be talking about, we're going to be talking about it from a media perspective. We're going to be talking about the five worst stories, five worst or fake news stories as laid out by the Daily Signal in 2017 that were related to firearms. Now we all know that there were a lot, and we all know that most stories that are written by the mainstream media are at least partially inaccurate, if not wholly inaccurate when it comes to firearms. But they took the time to lay out what they believe were the worst five, and I kind of happen to like their list, so that's what we're going to talk about. At the top of the list has to do with USA Today. The USA Today, right after the Texas shooting, put together a list of, or put together a story about the AR-15 that was used in the Texas shooting. And they actually, with it, they actually put together a video. And in this video, they kind of showed, one thing they did show that was accurate was they showed how interchangeable really a lot of the parts are with an AR-15. Basically, what makes an AR-15 so popular is the fact that it is customizable depending on what you plan on using it for and who you are. So the only thing they got right was that. But they included with it the addition of, certain accessories like, let's see, a chainsaw. A chainsaw, because there are people out there who are looking to add a chainsaw to their AR. So with that, they actually also happen to add, some folks actually had some other creative ideas, like a nuclear missile or a battleship. How about the city of San Antonio? That was a really great tweet that I saw by somebody. But, once again, this just goes to show the fallacy of what happens when you have people who do not know what they are talking about, have no concept of firearms culture, firearms industry, firearms technology. Once again, they put out stupid stuff like that. So this was a fun one. So next on the list had to do with the baseball game. This was the GOP baseball game that took place. Where there was an individual, a left-wing Democratic activist or Bernie Sanders supporter decided to go out and he was going to shoot up Republican softball game practice. Now, the interesting thing about it, in their piece, CNN goes on to talk about, why hasn't anything been passed since Sandy Hook? The problem is they go on to discuss just about everything except what really was the case. They talk about the evil empire, which is the NRA, but they completely and utterly ignore everything else that actually went into this. Now, what's interesting about it is that the entire interview was done. It wasn't even an interview, really. It was basically done by email. And it was an email with the head of the Brady campaign to prevent gun violence. So it really was a propaganda piece, not really an actual news story. But hey, I'm sure they were very happy that they were able to get their propaganda out there. Next on the list had to do with 5 years after Sandy Hook, gun control groups are still looking for a big win. Now, once again, how is this a story? This is NBC News, right? Which, once again, we can't really even call it NBC News because it's not really news anymore. Something that happened 5 years ago, it's not really news. You can comment on it, but it's not news anymore. But they wanted to talk about, once again, why there was not more laws passed, why there haven't been anti-gun laws passed. And their reason why? Well, big, powerful gun lobby, like the NRA and the gun industry. Which, by the way, let's just be clear. The gun lobby and the gun industry, two different folks. The gun industry, they're largely represented by groups like NSSF, National Shooting Sports Foundation, groups like the NRA, like Firearms Policy Coalition, Gun Owners of America, Gun Owners of California, and groups like those, we're all supported largely by individual donors. Now, that's not to say that some organizations don't get very, very large contributions from some companies, but for the most part, in particular, when it comes to the political advocacy, yeah, no, that's largely, almost, at least for us, it's almost all supported by you, individual donors. So the non-story is that they're saying it's the big money gun industry. The real story is, well, it's because once all the dust settles and you start to realize that none of these laws that they keep proposing would have made any difference in what actually occurred in each one of those instances. Moving right along, the next story. Now, this was one that was actually done. Now, The Economist used to be a really good source of information and news regarding the economy. But it's in some cases it's turned into a left-wing rag. It's just nothing more than another left-wing spin machine. And how do I know? Because when they start putting together, when they decide to do a piece on firearms and on guns and on shootings and mass shootings, where do they go as their source for information? Mother Jones. Take a look at it. It's right there. Source, Mother Jones. So, not exactly a credible, non-biased source of information when it comes to firearms advocacy, or even gun violence. Nonetheless, they use them as the source of their information. And quite obviously, the one that probably made me chuckle the most, this was an AP story that actually referred to authorities recovering a 40 millimeter pistol. Now, the interesting thing about this one is, well, those of you who don't get the joke, I'm not going to explain it to you. Those of you who get the joke, yeah, it's going to crack you up because, well, let's just say I'm sure there are a lot of people who'd like to have one of those if they actually existed. Anyway, folks, that's kind of, the media and the story for today. Thank you so much for tuning in to Coffee with Craig. We very much appreciate your support, both through your contributions, but also through sharing the information that we're able to provide to you. Thank you so much for being a part of the fight for civil rights. Remember, this is a fight for civil rights. We have got to use them, or we are going to lose them. You take care.
If you like our videos, follow, subscribe, like, and share.